From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neal McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome into this Monday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham and Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio this morning. Most of today's show will be an interview with Keith Carter, Ole Miss interim athletics director. I spoke to Keith on Thursday afternoon, so I'll fill in a couple blanks that have happened since then. But otherwise, you'll hear a lot about kind of the main programs at Ole Miss, some baseball, some basketball, some football, how Keith is kind of acclimated to the job, as well as some updates on facility, the alcohol situation the SEC has approved in recent weeks and months, and more. Coming up on today's Oxford Exxon podcast, brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon. You know that Cratical is the presenting sponsor of the You Gotta Believe football camp. That's coming to Jackson next week. That is July 8th and 9th. And you can still register. You'll hear more about this tomorrow. We're going to go into a little more detail about it tomorrow. But today you can still register at ygbfootball.org. Go there if you're a parent, if you're a coach, if you're the player himself that is listening. Sign up for that account. A lot of former Ole Miss players, a lot of NFL players, a lot of names there to help you be counselors. And it's a pretty cool couple days there in Jackson. So again, that's ygbfootball.org. And again, coming to you from the Clark Ford Studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. Call the number, ask for Corey Clark, tell Corey what Ford you are looking for, what Ford you are interested in, and he will send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours, right to the bottom line, no haggle, no hassle, just right to the bottom line. You get your quote, and the rest is up to you. You can let it be a baseline for yourself moving forward, or you can do what I've done, what a lot of people have done, and that's get into a Clark Ford. You'll love the product. You'll love the service. Delivery options. Corey wants to be your truck guy. He wants to be your car guy. I've had people say, what does that mean? Call the number. Talk to Corey. You'll start to find out. 662-257-1900. And at the end of your deal, tell Corey that you heard about Clark Ford on this podcast or on any of our family of podcasts. And you'll save $500 off your already great bottom line.
So the one big thing that you're going to hear in the interview that's not talked about in the interview, so we'll kind of do it now, is Mike Bianco's contract status, a little reasoning behind that. So Mike and Keith met 12 days ago from today, two Wednesdays ago. And I'm not sure exactly if it happened that day, if it happened a couple days later, but I had asked for clarification on Mike's contract and not gotten an answer, frankly. They were not ready to release anything. I had not been able to dig up whether he had been rolled over or not rolled over to the state maximum of 4 years, which he has been every year since 2013. And so when I'm doing the interview, I know I'm going to ask, but I'm probably going to ask after, simply because I don't want to bog it down right there with a non-answer and then have to follow up and whatever. I had a lot of stuff to get to. I was trying to maximize my time. So once the interview was over with no microphone on, I asked the question. I got the answer. Mike Bianco was not rolled over. Keith made the decision to leave him at 3 years going into it, and I'll get to some of those reasons why. There's a column that I wrote yesterday at rebelgrove.com. Neal mentioned it some in 10 Thoughts. As well, but don't get confused. You're going to hear us talk about it now, but when you get into the interview, I'm going to kind of bypass that question, so I'm telling you this is why here, because we went ahead and got it done after that interview was over, so just a little clarification there. But so otherwise, I think you're good. I don't think there's any misstep or anything that should confuse you that has happened between Thursday and Monday. Thank God, because it's July. I'm glad no major news has broken. So Neal, you wrote about it. You and I had pretty much the same thoughts. Keith has decided to, keep Mike at 3 years. That is not I know a lot of people are kind of going to be all over the place because I didn't really make an outline on how to go through this. I'm just going to kind of do it for a second. First off, I know a lot of critics of that decision have said this affects recruiting. No, this is not like football. This is not like basketball. I think Mike Clement was the one that told me last week, said, you have a problem in the system where kids are committed to a school longer than they actually play for the school. Because kids commit as freshmen in high school, sophomores in high school. They're getting looked at as eighth graders. It's a clock and a calendar that has moved up so fast that this 1 year on a contract is not going to make any difference whatsoever. So let's throw that out. I just don't believe it. I'm not really going to have that conversation because I don't think that's a thing. Second, it's not even really about the 3 or 4 years. It's not about optics. This is not a situation because we're not talking about both sides of our mouth, but we're wanting you to use some context here. This is not like the Andy Kennedy, Jeff Vitter situation for a couple different reasons. Usually not rolling over a coach is a stopgap measure that does nothing. Frankly, it's kind of weak because you're not making a decision. You're not putting a coach at full support, and you're also not firing the coach, which in a lot of instances is what you actually want to do. When the thing happened with AK,
it absolutely impacts recruiting.
Yeah. Did what now?
I said, and in basketball, it absolutely impacts recruiting.
Well, it impacted recruiting. It cost them multiple players that were on that team. It also affected assistant coach changes, the Bill Armstrong situation. It did a lot of stuff. That's not the case here for multiple reasons. First off, the assistants were taken care of before even Mike was taken care of either way. Mike Clement and Carl Lafferty were put on 2-year deals, which is maximum. That's all you're going to see for baseball coaches pretty much, barring some unique circumstance. So no, there was no program stability issue involved here. Also, Mike's contract is weird, and this is where the actual debate and the discussion comes in. Mike was not extended after 2012 or 2013. He was coaching in 2014 with 2 years left on his contract, and they finished third in the country. They went to the College World Series, all that stuff. So when 2014 is over, Mike and Ross are negotiating, I guess Mike's agents, Patrick, whomever. And at the time, I understood what Ross was doing. He put in a very incentive-laden deal and essentially put in a deal where whatever the bonuses were from one season, that became his base the next year. And if Mike goes to Omaha a couple more times, nobody really cares. His salary can go wherever, and you go, hey, you got to win games, you got to be competitive, you got to hit these benchmarks, and when you hit them, your salary will go up. Okay, great, whatever. Well, Mike has, and again, this is going to come off as criticism. I don't mean it that way. It's just what's happened. Mike's hit all these benchmarks without satisfying the fan base and getting back to the College World Series. So since 2014, Mike's won the SEC tournament. He won a regional this year. He's hosted 3 regionals. He has won the SEC West twice. He's hit tons of APR numbers, tons of draft pick numbers, all this stuff. He's hit every single marker except the College World Series, which has blown his salary up. Mike Bianco next season is going to make just shy of $1.2 million. And barring, raises or other coaches getting raises, I don't know all that stuff. But it's going to be top 5 in the country, barring a lot of other raises around the country. Well, when you look at who these other coaches are around the country, you're talking about Tim Corbin, Dan McDonnell, Jim Schlossnagle, frankly, Butch Thompson probably at this point, Paul Mainieri, Dave Van Horn, guys with a lot of College World Series appearances, guys who have a lot of pelts on the wall. And I don't think it's unfair to point out that Mike is the outlier in that group from the standpoint of College World Series appearances, which is what the average fan realizes from a college baseball standpoint. And because of that, look, I give Mike Bianco all the credit in the world. There's no reason for him to take a pay cut. He's not going to restructure this thing. That behooves him in no way whatsoever. So the only thing that Ole Miss has to do here, because they're not firing Mike, they like where the program is. Frankly, they think the trajectory of the program is moving up. It is to affect the number of years on the contract and the buyout, because Mike's buyout is a percentage of the total money remaining on his contract. So by not rolling him over, whether it be Keith or a new AD or whomever, it's a really high 6-figure number that they are keeping off that buyout for next year to kind of just be something for somebody else to deal with, or for somebody else to figure out the conversation at that point, or for Keith to figure out the conversation at that point. And that's what the deal is here. Ole Miss is not flush with cash. Ole Miss needed to do something that was fiscally responsible, and at the end of the day, I think they finally set an expectation. For years, I don't know that there was ever necessarily exactly what the baseball program was supposed to do. It was very consistent. It's a top 15 regular season program. Inarguably, bottom line, no doubt. But in postseason, they have struggled. This year they didn't, but in a lot of years they have struggled. I think Keith is putting down a very firm foundation of a certain number of Omaha appearances. I think he is putting down that the expectation is, if nothing else, more College World Series appearances than they currently have. And it's an interesting time to do that because next year is a little bit of a rebuilding year. It's possible that next year a super regional exceeds expectations and maybe they bump him back to 3 or 4 or whatever. That's what's so funny about this. But at the end of the day, they are putting an emphasis on baseball. They are saying it matters. They are saying we're going to fund you in every way possible, from a facilities to an upgrade to an assistant coach staff, all that kind of stuff. But I think they're also sending a message to Mike that this is not satisfactory, that we need more from the results of this program, considering the money that is being put into it. So I think it was the right decision. I think from a fiscal standpoint, it was the right decision. But no, it is not like the other sports. It is not as complicated from a recruiting standpoint. And, for better or worse, Neil, I think that for the first time since, frankly, 2013, everybody kind of at least knows where this program is supposed to go if this is how it's going to be.
See, I think I kind of disagree with you a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Not like fighting words or anything.
Yeah. Well, it makes for a better podcast than you going, yes, absolutely. Move on.
I think that the two sides are headed for divorce. Everyone generally knows it. And at the first opportunity, that's what's going to happen. That's what I think.
Well, I don't know who the AD is, so that's my problem with that. Is the new AD comes in and goes, hey, Mike's doing a hell of a job, move him out to 4 years. Okay, done.
And that's easy to do. That's easy to do. I mean,
it was a measure in place. Look, no doubt. I mean, and I probably beat around the bush a little here. It was a measure in place that if a change is coming, that change is easier. No doubt about that. That was primary number one.
Make the change cheaper.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I think that's all it is. I mean, look, if he takes next year's team to Omaha, well, no one's going to want to fire him. And a new person or the current person or whatever can push him back out to 4 years and give him a raise and a
pat on the back and all good.
I mean, give him a gold elephant statue if that's what he wants. I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, the point is that it's easy to push him back out and make him happy if he does his part. But if they take a step back and a new AD comes in and goes, what's it been, 20 years? Yeah, it's probably time for something fresh. It's easier to do it at a time when financially, and this isn't just Ole Miss. We talked about this on Greatest Pod in the South the other day. I mean, I'm told that some of the stuff about, and maybe you and Keith talked about this, about the 8.5 to 9% cuts, that it's a little disingenuous. It's not really that way. It's not really that dramatic. Regardless, Auburn just going through a 10% cut across the board in athletics. Missouri's going to cut budgets in athletics. Everyone's preparing now for what is inevitable, which is that the changing media landscape is going to change dollars. People aren't coming to games as much. It's harder to sell tickets. Ole Miss isn't the only school where season tickets are down. Look around the country. Tickets are down. It's easier to watch games on television. It's easier. It's cheaper for a family of 4.7 to watch games on television. Much cheaper. So I think this is simple. I think this is preparing for a divorce.
It's been such a weird couple months because he was certainly headed for divorce in April. Would have saved his gig even if Ross had still been here. But prior to winning a regional or at least the SEC tournament run, it was gone. It was over. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it is at minimum keeping all options in place in the best way possible. Just
yeah. I think that's all it is. Yeah. I think that's precisely what it is. It's nothing more than that.
I guess my point on the other is I do feel like, and I don't know, I'm not really crediting either way. I don't know. I just find it interesting. Ross always said, hey, let's get in the tournament. We need to compete at the highest level. He was never as direct as Keith has been about, no, it's College World Series appearances. Period. You know what I mean?
And that's cool. I mean, I get it. It'll be interesting moving forward when you eventually move on from the Bianco era, which is going to go at least 20 years.
Yeah. That's crazy. Today's world, that is crazy.
How a new coach walks in and says, okay, so the standard here is Omaha. Is that right? The standard here is Omaha. And it's a fair question when he says what precisely justifies that standard.
It is the complication with the Bianco era, and I know we have talked about this all the time, is, yes, there are major scholarship issues, there are major recruiting issues, there are all these things, but Ole Miss is top 10 every freaking year in recruiting rankings and draft picks. And when you do that, it kind of takes away the excuse that there's scholarship issues because the talent is on the field. Is that fair? Not all the way, but it is reality. Now it shows you that you better get the dang hire right, whatever it is, or you're going to become Alabama or South Carolina even really, really quickly. But at the same time, I do get the people that go, well, yeah, I get it, but there is talent there, and that is justified. The talent is absolutely there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you would. Yeah. I mean, you would know that better than I would. I'm not critical of the decision. I mean, it's Ole Miss's decision. Whatever.
Well, I guess my point being is the guy who gets mad at me does have the argument when he goes, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but they're number 3 in the nation recruiting rankings, and they had like the 6th most draft picks. So how is talent the excuse?
It's depth of talent, but yeah, I get it. I mean, look, they've choked in the postseason repeatedly.
2018. If this is over next year or even the next year, 2018 will have been the death knell.
Yes.
2018. Not this past season, 2018.
I said it that next morning on the podcast.
Yeah.
There are losses. There are losses for a franchise or a college team, whatever, that are not recoverable. When they happen, you feel sea change. I'll give you an example. When the Oklahoma City Thunder lost Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals at home against Golden State, blowing a 9-point fourth quarter lead. I watched it at a bar in Perdido. I walked back to the condo where we were staying, and I was on the phone with Jeffrey, and I said, that's the end of the Thunder. Now, have the Thunder played it? They've played in the postseason. They've done stuff since then. They've had a player win MVP. It's not like the franchise has gone to hell, but it's not been the same. And they're no longer a championship contender, and an opportunity was lost. And I realize pro is different from college. They're not recovering from that. They're just not. They didn't recover this year. They got within a game of Omaha, but they didn't get to Omaha. And if Omaha is the standard, then they didn't get there. And it will be a monumental shock, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. If the baseball gods came down and told you today, hey, Ole Miss goes to Omaha in 2020, I think you would be floored.
I mean, they've got some pitching, but yeah, they've got a lot of holes. They're not. It would take an Auburn type deal. They'd have to get really hot at the right time, kind of even, or I'll give one other scenario. And again, is this likely? No, but I'll give you the scenario. Arkansas. They got a hell of a gift out of a JUCO kid and a graduate transfer. Is it likely? Probably not, but it's possible. You know what I mean? They had 2 freshmen step into the rotation in Wicklander and Nolan. They had Ezel and Goodhart come out of grad transfers and JUCOs, and stuff just worked out. So, whatever. It's SEC baseball. But I get your point.
You bet against it. You would bet against it.
Yeah, of course. And look, here's the funny part of this. Here's the interesting part of this. If Mike Bianco coaches another 5 to 10 years and makes a couple College World Series and rejuvenates his career going into 2020, we saw why it's going to happen. Is he did manage differently at the end of the season. He backed off of them. He had a true sense of change in what buttons to push, what buttons not to push, and kind of how to handle, let's be real here, a kid in 2018-19 differently than probably a kid in 2007, 2008. The kids are just different now from a standpoint of how to handle them. And Mike did a really, really good job there. So that's what's funny about this to me, is Mike's a better manager today, if he continues that and takes that into next year, than he probably has been at any point in the last 10 years. Now, that's got to get results. That doesn't mean anything. My point being, I do see a path where he actually sort of fixes this thing.
Sure. I mean, he's a very competent coach.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done a really good job for the overwhelming.
And I think they're really good in 2021.
Yeah,
I think they're dang good when Hoagland and Nikhazy and those guys are juniors, and then Diamond and those guys are sophomores. I think that's a national seed team in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be fascinated to see what his contract status is in 2021, because that's because they've now established it. See, this is what's interesting to me. I always think precedent is fascinating. And whether Keith Carter's the one making the decision a year from now remains to be seen. Obviously, I have no idea. Beats the hell out of me.
Yeah, of course.
But this team came within, a few outs of winning another SEC championship, and it came one game away from going to Omaha.
Yeah, 7 innings.
And that wasn't enough to get rolled over. That wasn't enough to get extended. So let's just play this out for a second, because this is where it's entertaining, frankly. I like drama. It's one of the reasons I like the NBA. And so here's the drama. Say I'm right, that next year's team takes a step back. Maybe it makes the tournament. I don't know. Maybe let's just, for kicks and giggles, it goes as a 2 seed to North Carolina and loses in a regional. Okay, just giving it a scenario.
Finish second to the Tar Heels. So they go 36-24 on the year, whatever.
Sure, whatever. But they didn't get as close to Omaha as they got the year before, so now you can't roll him over.
Well, in that scenario, probably. But I will say that Keith has said, hey, expectations are not the same year over year over year. It depends on the team. I think where they get to, if they were to get to a super regional next year, I think they'd roll him over.
Yeah, I know, but in this scenario, he doesn't.
Yeah, I get it.
And so you don't roll him over, and now he's got a national team coming back.
Well, it sounds a lot like 2014.
Yeah, you got a national team coming back in 21, and the coach has 2 years left on the deal, including the one that he's coaching. Does he go to being super duper tight? Does he go back to being just intense and all that stuff, or does he stay loose and kind of start to almost get that attitude of, you know what, man, I'm coaching these kids, and I wear the uniform because it's the uniform that we have to wear, but screw it. Here's middle finger to all you people. It's just us.
A little bit of major league movie kind of deal.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's what works, I mean, who knows? My point is that when you start, it's the only thing you got to be careful about when you start saying we are, and I haven't heard the interview, but when you start saying we are essentially Omaha or bust, okay, well, it's a hell of a standard.
It's why I'm so in the middle on this, because it's complicated. But yes, they should have been to Omaha more than once in the last 20 years.
Of course.
No doubt.
Of course. And there's something about round numbers that we all like. We all like round numbers. And everybody, so he's going to have 20 years. And let's say he doesn't go to Omaha next year. It's going to be so simple to go. So he's a 5% guy. He goes to Omaha 5% of the time.
Well, and what's also, I wrote this yesterday in my little thing, and I get it. I'm not even necessarily whatever, but at the end of the day, is the program going down, up, or staying the same? That's the question with all coaching changes. What is the trajectory of this thing, and which way are we headed? Because while everybody goes, hey, if he'd just been to Omaha 4 or 5 times, over the 20 years, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Well, part of my question is, well, why? Because let's say he went in 5, 7, and 9. What freaking difference does that make on 2019? None. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this totality of a situation to me makes no sense. Is it moving up, down, or not moving at all? That's your question. Yeah. I don't really. If Stephen Head hit a ball over the wall against J. Brent Cox and Evan Button didn't make an error in the 8th inning, that doesn't change what's going on with this program next year. But he'd be more safe today.
But fans we're all that way.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just...
everyone's emotional.
And the answer is, well, he would have proven he can do it. And okay, fair enough, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, but, they had a pretty good postseason run this year.
They did.
They ran into a better team on the road and lost.
Yeah. The problem this year was not the postseason. It was scuffling around for most of the year to put yourself in that position. You have to go to Arkansas.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, but I'll just say that it's kind of interesting when you start making that the standard. I start saying, okay, well, if that's the standard in baseball, why is that not the standard in everything?
Yeah.
And if it's going to be if the answer is well, because we can't do it in everything else. Then you get back into, so why did you pick the sport where you are fundamentally handicapped as the sport where you're going to set the highest standard?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a fair question. I know people won't like that, but I do think that's a fair assessment on my part. Why are you going to hold that program, the one in which you are absolutely fundamentally handicapped compared to the people that you compete against? Why are you going to hold that sport to a standard that you don't hold any other sport on campus to.
And coming full circle, it's because Mike Bianco has had success and found ways around it.
Yeah, it's because he created his own damn guillotine. He built the thing himself. He literally sharpened the blade himself. Because, man, it truly, when you take a step back and you get rational about it, and I can do this because it doesn't matter to me. I can look at it and go, wait a minute, this rationally makes no sense. Not about protecting Mike. Not about that. Mike's fine. Mike's going to walk out of this with a bunch of money. Mike's good. This isn't about Mike Bianco. To me, it's about why fundamentally are you going to hold a program to a standard that you won't hold any other no one's putting the football program on this standard. Hey man, it's kind of college football playoff or failure.
Yeah,
no one's
Access
saying,
Bowl, guys.
Yeah, no one's saying about men's basketball at Ole Miss, hey, really, it's kind of, if you don't get to the Sweet 16, this kind of didn't work. No one's saying that. No one's going up to Stephen McRoberts and going, hey, man, you need to be in the Sweet 16 of the volleyball tournament every year, or else it's kind of failure. No one's doing that. But you'll do it in a sport where you literally do not have some of the advantages that the people you compete against have.
Yeah, and it's all because they've gotten the closest in that sport.
And I realize that. Yeah. But one guy got them there. Before that one guy, that rarely, not never, but rarely happened.
Yeah. Let's go to Keith in 1 minute. You'll hear the entirety of that interview before the Delta about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting and processing is done in Memphis. You're getting local underwriting and understands your market, a leader in condo financing in Oxford, and a good time to review your rates. Interest rates are at the lowest they've been in a little over 2 years, so maybe it's time to refinance or just see what Jason can do for you. You can find him at 662-234-2704 or JLOWE@communitymtg.com.
Keith Carter and other guests join us on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law. They specialize in personal injury law and real estate law, but theirs is a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. Take advantage of being a podcast listener. You have a legal issue. If you think you have a legal issue, but you're not sure whether it's worth exploring, whether it's worth the financial hassle, if you will, get in touch with these guys. The initial consultation's free. They'll help you out. John Calvin Patterson, Wes Earhart, they're Ole Miss guys, they're local guys. And when you call them, you're going to get one of them on the phone within the same day, guaranteed. 662-526-1992 or check out their website, pelaws.com. Hot weather is here, really hot the last couple of days. With it comes the inevitable debate of sock or no sock with your loafers. Save your feet and your shoes from making their own impression and jump into summer with some no-shows from Dead Soxy. You really need to experience the difference a quality sock makes. Go to deadsoxy.com. Enter the code Rebel Grove at checkout to receive 30% off all orders, including sale items. These no-shows are the same quality you already love and enjoy with their traditional dress sock, and they come with the no-slip guarantee. Again, deadsoxy.com, no-show collection. Enter promo code Rebel Grove at checkout for 30% off of all orders. You don't want to miss the action at the Vault this season as Ole Miss football arrives this September. Arkansas is the season opener. I think it's September the 7th, if I have my calendar right in my head. Reserve your season tickets with new 2019 season ticket pricing for just $299. For more information, visit OleMissTix.com. That's OleMissTix.com. Podcast also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust, based in Madison, Mississippi, represents clients in more than 20 states, has advisors in 3 states. Founded in 1997, Pinnacle Trust provides detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. Pinnacle Trust treats investing like a commodity, and makes decisions using objective information and research, not emotions. Regardless of your level of wealth, Pinnacle Trust will sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan that is built just for you. It's pintrust.com, PINNtrust.com. Mention that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fee.
Now here's Keith Carter on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Keith, appreciate the time today. I guess to start off with a really easy one, what's it been like so far in the position? I mean, you're obviously over in the main building. Still, we're sitting here in the foundation. Are you still wearing a couple different hats, trying to get stuff sorted, or what's sort of the last 3-4 weeks been like?
Yeah, it's been good. Overall, it's been really good. There's been a lot of volume, just a lot of things that are kind of coming at you. That, when you get in the chair and questions that are that people are expecting you to answer. But it's been good. We got great people here. We got people that work at a very high level, and very candidly, I've learned a lot from some of those people. In the past 3 weeks, learning more about compliance, more about the academic side, and obviously my background is more on the external side, so. I'm spending a little more time in the main athletics building, working with those internal units and trying to, to get up to speed on some of those things. But it's been good. It's been fun. Really haven't been in the office a ton. Been traveling a lot, and finally back in the office really this week. So it's been great. And like I've said before, we're going to continue to push forward, be aggressive, and try to do some cool things here over the summer.
How quick did you kind of find out that, Ross is going to A&M, you're getting the gig? I mean, what was sort of that transition like from when you found out, like all of us, I guess, there on that Wednesday night or whatever it was?
Yeah, it was actually Thursday night.
Yeah.
I've been in Hoover, and we won the game that afternoon, came back, and I was going to grab my wife and go back the next day, and Ross had a donor meeting or something was going on. He was planning to come on that Friday back over to Hoover, so I called him, and I was talking about our plans to head back to Hoover, and he said, well, hold on real quick, I got to tell you something. And so it was about probably 6 o'clock that night that he kind of told me the news, and then it kind of leaked out maybe about 8 o'clock that night. So I found out maybe an hour or two before the rest of the general public, and it was a shock. I don't think any of us really expected it. It happened so quietly and quickly. But you know what? It's a great opportunity for him. Ross is a guy that I'll always look at as a great mentor, a great friend, and somebody that I'll always continue to bounce ideas off of, and somebody who I think will do a great job at Texas A&M. So excited for him, and obviously then, the opportunity for me popped up, and certainly very happy that Chancellor Sparks gave me that opportunity, and look forward to hopefully sticking around for a while.
What was Destin like? Because you're just brand new. I mean, I know Ross goes and is kind of just sitting here as a conduit almost in the middle between the two. I mean, what was sort of that like for you, that being so new and obviously listening as much as anything probably, but also being Ole Miss's representative in those rooms?
Yeah, it wasn't that foreign. I'd been in those rooms before over the last 4 or 5 years, so I kind of knew the drill. But when you're actually the guy that has to raise your hand and vote on legislation and those type of things, it's different. I think thankfully this year there wasn't a lot of heavy-hitting, hard-hitting legislation. Lynette Johnson and Michael Thompson were great to help me with some of that stuff. Ross was great to help me. He was in the room as well, so I nudged him a couple of times and asked some Ole Miss questions. One of my other best friends, Alan Green, is the AD at Auburn, so he was very helpful. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's a little different setting. I think probably the biggest thing that came out of Destin was the alcohol policy that the SEC came forward with. So, but it was interesting being in the room. Certainly did take more of a listening approach, but we actually had an AD conference call today, and we've got another meeting in August. So getting acclimated to that, the people in that room were great. They're very helpful. Obviously, the people from the league were very helpful. So it'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but for the most part, just going in there and trying to learn and get better and represent Ole Miss.
You kind of mentioned it there, though. Where is that alcohol thing sitting here now? Is it still a possibility for the fall, or are we looking farther down the line than that?
I think that right now we are, as Ole Miss, are trying to figure out if it's the right thing for our institution. We have some potential hurdles that maybe the state of Mississippi has that some other states don't, whether it be a state policy or law or an IHL policy. So we're basically just exploring. We're trying to look and see, what makes the most sense for us and what avenues we would need to go down to pursue that. But I honestly probably wouldn't anticipate it for the fall, but we'll continue to explore and see, if it's an option, and if it is, what the time frame would look like.
I know Ross had mentioned to me, I guess a couple months ago, that there was the resort status for volume away thing. Does that clear some of those hurdles, or is that a very specific thing that allows? What does that kind of do for you?
Well, the resort status, while allowing us to do a lot more with concerts and different things that are non-athletic venues, and it'll allow us to really do some cool things there. It's actually a totally different conversation than what the SEC has now given back to the institutions, because that's for athletic events. Okay. And so that's where the potential hurdles and maybe a few things we've got to work through on the state level, the IHL level, those type of things, working with obviously our leadership there. everybody wants to be on the same page. But as far as the resort status, we could potentially be doing a concert this fall, maybe in the spring, where we could sell beer, and that's going to allow us to attract better acts and hopefully use the pavilion for really what it was intended for, obviously basketball, but it was built for concerts as well. So we look forward to doing that.
You're obviously the athletic director, but with it be potentially a temporary thing, an interim thing, how does that change decision making, what you do short term and long term?
Well, my original conversation with Larry, he said, "Hey, I want you to act as the AD," and I feel like I've done that so far. Certainly, if there's bigger type decisions that need to be made, I'm going to work with him, work with our staff. But I think our goal is just to push forward, and I think as we talk about construction projects and things that were kind of on the docket before Ross left, we're gonna push forward. We're gonna fundraise. We're gonna be aggressive on those endeavors, and we're gonna try to just keep pushing. And my goal is to work every day as if we're making decisions that are going to affect the future and in a good way. Now
that the NCAA thing is getting a little farther in the rearview mirror and different things, do you feel like just public trust has gotten better? How do you kind of see that? How have you sort of been received in some of those things? I've always talked to Ross about that a little bit on, just trying to gain back some of it, but just because of all the stuff and the scar tissue the fans went through. Where are you sort of seeing that now for this part of 2019?
Yeah, I think every day we get away from it, it gets a little better, honestly. There's things that we're still working through financially and otherwise that are going to have some lingering effects, but I think that all we can do is move forward. Certainly you can have hindsight's 20/20, and you can look back and maybe we should have done this or that or whatever. But really, all we have now is each other. We got to pull together and move forward. And I'm excited about where we are in our sports. I'm excited about where we are, as far as our kind of where we are in the SEC and being able to work with a full deck of cards, whether it be in football if you're Matt Luke or just our department as a whole, without having that cloud kind of hovering over. It feels different coming to work every day. It feels like, we're actually doing our day jobs and working on things, that we need to be productive and move forward instead of having to always, kind of tell this story or fight this, whatever it is. So it definitely feels different as you come to work. And I think if you ask our folks in the department, they would say the same. So, and, from a donor standpoint, obviously that's my background and being out with donors, I think everybody's ready. Everybody's ready to move forward. We get it that there were some issues, there were some things that we went through, but, we can't go back now. And I think if we continue to just look back and not move forward, we're going to be hurting ourselves. So I hope that we can move forward, and I think our goal every day that we come to work here in the department is to push forward.
I saw the quote you gave Chuck over in the week about budget cuts and everything. So you got to explain exactly what that does mean at this point.
Yeah, and I think that got a little bit blown out of proportion. For us, basically, Chase, if you're running a business, I think it's your duty every year to go and look at your expenses and see, hey, where can we be more efficient? And as we looked at football season ticket sales and tracked them a little bit as we got through our deadline, we looked and we said, hey, we may need to go and tighten our belts a little bit. And we went to the coaches who were all very receptive to it. The 8.5% cuts of the budget is a little misleading because there was about $80 million. So if you break it down, there's about $100 million in our athletic department budget, and then there's about $17 million on the foundation side. Okay. So $117 million total budget. Well, on the athletic side, there was about $80 million that we deemed was untouchable. Those are salaries, scholarships, recruiting, all these essential items that our coaches and student athletes need to be successful and do the things they need to do. There was about another $20 million that we said these are more discretionary. These are where coaches can go in and say, hey, I could maybe use this, maybe not. I might be able to cut here, cut there. And we asked coaches to go in from that really $20 million bucket and say, let's cut around 8.5%. So everybody was really receptive to it. I don't think there was anything that was going to really hamstring a coach or a student athlete's going to see any difference. But really, it's just one of those, you get the SEC money back in 2012 or 13, you're kind of fat and happy for a while. And I think it was just time to go back and, again, tighten our belts, be a little more efficient. I think if you look at football's cut as an example, the overall cut that they took from their overall budget was about 1%. And, if you talk about everything all involved, scholarships, salaries, it was about 1%. So, I think it's going to help us on our bottom line and balance our budget. But at the end of the day, our student athletes and our coaches aren't going to see a huge difference. They're not going to be able to not operate or have those resources that they need to be successful. So, for me, it's one of those, we may go back next year and do the same thing. I think it's something that you need to do every year and see where you can be more efficient. And I would think that, most of our donors and fans would think, being fiscally responsible is the way we need to go.
I guess the 16 million, 17 million, whatever it was from those 2 years of lack of bowl revenue or money from the league. What is sort of, in your opinion, just the kind of the overall health, economically and budgetary of the university, the athletic department right now?
Yeah, I think we're fine. I mean, I think that Ross did a great job building up this reserve fund that we knew we were going to have to spend. It wasn't one of those we're going to try to build it up and hold it. We knew we were going to have to spend it when we had this $16 million cut over 2 years from the SEC revenue. So we've had to dip into that. I don't think our reserves are quite as healthy as we would want them to be in a perfect world. But again, I think if you look back over the last 2 years, the years that we've had those penalties, those financial penalties, I think you could ask any coach, any student athlete, they haven't seen any difference in the way they operate. And that was our goal. We wanted to make sure that's how it was. Now, when you factor in a little bit of the season ticket lag in football, and we're going to keep working there, we've still got a lot of time to do some really good things. But that, along with having to dip into that reserves, that you have to be a little more conscious of what you're doing. But I would say the overall health of our department is good financially. I bet if you went around the SEC, you would find a lot of departments kind of tightening their belts a little bit and trying to be more efficient. Whether it's Alabama or Florida or whoever. I think everybody's kind of looking at that right now. So that's something we're going to continue to do, but I think we're healthy. We're going to be able to move forward. We'll be able to do projects and continue to be aggressive. But certainly, you got to make sure that you're taking notice of some of those things as well.
Take a break in our talk with Keith, tell you about Mastercuts Lawn and Landscape. They provide premium lawn care throughout northern Mississippi, but they offer a lot more as well. They build your custom playgrounds, retaining walls, pool decks, and any outdoor living space that you want with paver patios, forestry mulching, and much more. The path to your dream backyard, easier than you think. You can find them online at gomastercuts.com for a free quote. That same free quote at 662-607-7773. Again, gomastercuts.com.
Podcast also brought to you by the Westin Jackson. You can restore serenity to your soul by visiting Soul Spa right there in the Westin Jackson. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. It's also home to Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro, where you can sip on a creative craft cocktail, enjoy their curated wine list. It's open for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Chef Caden's mission is to connect guests with the community through local partnerships, so gather at Estelle in the Westin Jackson tonight. Podcast also brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you follow John on social media, you saw some of the photos that he took of his trip to Antigua. It looked amazing. That's the kind of trip that a travel expert books for himself. He can book one for you as well. Get in touch with him. He's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows John to supply his clients with added values, unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. Give him a call. Give him some parameters. Give him an idea of what it is that you want to do. Give him a budget. And then sit back and let him give you options that you're probably not going to think of on your own. You don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. There's no commitment until you commit. So 901-494-3387 or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. It's a podcast that's also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. Grenada Nissan, located just off Interstate 55 in Grenada, Mississippi. They have a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles. Go in, test drive one today. Tell Gene and Sandy Grass that you heard about Grenada Nissan on the podcast at rebelgrove.com. You'll get Rebel savings on top of the already great deals at Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. And we're brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX Legacy Realty agent. He's a big part of Savannah Square, which is a new 9-acre development about 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square, conveniently located east of North Lamar, just a short stroll from the Midtown Shopping Center. You can go check out Savannah Square today, 215 William Street. That's where the model home is. There are 32 homes that are in the initial release of Savannah Square. You can check those out. They have wonderful layouts, impeccable finishes that you can look at the model. Get in touch with Harry. Go to SavannahSquareOxford.com. Take a look, and then get in touch with Harry by call or text at 662-801-5621.
Don't need an exact number or anything, but where is sort of ticket sales for football year over year just at this point for this time of year?
We're going to do a really public announcement here in about 10 days around July 10th. We're up above 30,000 right now. Student tickets are coming in as well. I think our plan, if we kind of tracked where we are right now, we'd be up in kind of the mid 40s, mid to low 40s, if with all the student tickets involved as well. But we're gonna announce all that here soon, and we're gonna talk about some different packages, some different flex packages, and different ways to consume tickets. I think there's a trend, and not just me. There is a trend in college athletics that the season ticket really isn't what it used to be, and we're certainly going to always have season ticket packages. We want people to be able to have those tickets that have been in their families for generations and those traditions. But we're going to get creative too. I mean, our bottom line is if we have a stadium, we want it to be full. We really don't care how you get your ticket. And there's secondary markets, there's flex passes, there's different things that we can do, and some of those will be announced later in July. But for us, our hope is when we play Arkansas on September 7th that we have a full stadium. And at the end of the day, we really don't care how they get their ticket. We just want them to be there and be supporting the Rebels. So we're going to continue to be aggressive with that, and hopefully some of these new packages will allow people to consume in different ways. Not everybody wants to buy 7 tickets for the season. They want to come to 2 or 3 games. They want to have a premium package. They want to do different things. And I think not only Ole Miss, but I think you're going to see that trending around the country moving forward, is that people are going to figure out more ways and more creative ways to sell tickets.
I know winning is A, B, and C with this, and this might be a question for Michael as much as anything, but what are the challenges and the ways that you think are best to, not only get people to the games and out of their living rooms, but out of the Grove into the stadium, but just some of the unique challenges that Ole Miss does have some in some of those areas because of the good thing around the stadium that's there as well?
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. I mean, it's a hard question to figure out because, one of our biggest selling points is the Grove. I mean, people come to Oxford for that bucket list experience, and certainly the product on the field, we've got to get better, and Coach Luke and his staff are going to get us there. But, some of it's just kind of the way that the trend is going now, that people want to come in, they want to enjoy the game for 2.5 quarters and go back to the Grove. So we've got to figure out ways to get a little more creative in venue, and make sure that when people are there, they don't want to leave because they don't want to miss something. And Michael and his staff are going to continue to evaluate all of that. Whether it's music, the band, the attractions, different things, promotions, those type of things. But we've got to get people that once the game has started, we got to get them to stay in the stadium, starting with the students. And I think that's something we've talked a lot about as well, is figuring out ways in that student section to make it more social. Finding ways to make it a little more like right field or even Club Red in basketball, where they're down there, they're engaged, they're doing all those things. And so hopefully with that too, we'll have some new programming with the student section coming out before football season as well.
Obviously, the stadium things are more fundraising than obviously operating budget-wise, but what is sort of on the docket? Is there anything close or in motion there? What's going on from an improvement standpoint stadium-wise?
Stadium
or facilities in general.
Facilities in general. One of the big things that we're going to get kicked off here probably within the next month is we're going to build a new track locker room, and that's something that will affect about 100 of our student athletes. Really, that locker room area over there has not been touched really since the stadium opened years ago, and so we're going to do that. We're going to that will be one of the initial things that we'll get going really quickly. Obviously everybody's talked about softball. We want to continue to evaluate what needs to happen over there. Obviously, Mike has done a great job, and there's some improvements that need to happen. Not sure on timing there, but we're going to continue. I don't see any major, big capital projects such as a pavilion or a north end zone. Right. But I think this is a time where we can really kind of go project specific, whether it be the track project will be about $2 million. We're not real sure on the softball project, so we're kind of evaluating all those things. But again, we want to keep pushing. We want to do those things. If we have a need, we want to find a way to address it. We don't want to tread water and wait until new leadership or those type of things. We want to keep pushing. And the first one we'll do is that track locker room.
Baseball just ended. I know obviously you came up full-time right at the very end of that. I know you told Parrish that you were meeting with Mike last week or whatever. What's sort of just your impressions of the baseball season, and then anything, pertaining to, just kind of the trajectory of that program, if you will?
Well, as I told Parrish, I think we have a healthy program. I really do. I think that Mike does a tremendous job. A model program in all aspects, from student athletes to academic success to consistency throughout his 19-year career. I think the thing we got to look at is that postseason push, and finding a way now with, really giving probably top 5 resources to the program in a lot of aspects, and finding a way to consistently find our way to Omaha. And I think that's something that, Mike and I will continue to talk about, and we'll continue to try to be a joint solution there and figure out a way to do that. But as far as Mike and what he does with his program, he's second to none. I love Mike Bianco. I love what he does with his program, how he turns boys into young men and guys that go out to be productive citizens and all those things. But we got to find a way to be a little more successful in the late postseason.
Neither one of you nor I are baseball coaches, but I mean, what in your opinion, what sort of leads into that? I mean, what would lead into really successful regular seasons, but then some lags, later on?
I think in baseball it's probably harder than any other sport to figure that answer out, and you know that as much as anybody. Mike and I, in our discussion, he came up with some really interesting ideas, and obviously we'll keep those between us. But I was very, very happy with some of the things that he came in and talked about, and I think he understands that we want to take that next step. And some of it's just baseball, some of it's just getting an unlucky bounce or an unlucky call or those type of things. But I do think with the resources we have now that we can find a way to be a little more consistent as we get into that regional, super regional time frame and pushing onto Omaha and punching that ticket.
Able to keep Mike Clement after the A&M offer last week. Was it big to kind of keep some stability there between those assistant coaches in that program?
It really was. And I think, with Carl and Mike and Mark McMillan as well, I mean, I think they have a great staff. And, I think that the thing about that staff is they all kind of complement each other. I think you've got some guys that push pretty hard. You got some guys that come behind and are that guy that gives them a hug and loves on them a little bit. And I think that, all those buttons are there to be pushed. And I think, whether it's Mike Bianco or Mike Clement or Carl or, all of them have to just maybe take that next step and figure out, hey, how can we do this collectively with us as administration? How can we help? All those things. But I think the staff is great. I really do. I think they've got the right mindset. They work extremely hard, and the chemistry over there is really good.
Football coming up, obviously, it seems like they picked up a lot of momentum really from the moment that Rich Rod and Mike were hired, because they closed pretty well in February, and they've had a big flurry of kind of commits and just recruiting momentum overall here in the summer. What's sort of your mood with that program heading into the fall?
Well, I'll be honest, over the last probably 3 or 4 months before this transition, I hadn't spent a lot of time there. I've just been so busy with basketball and baseball. Those are my two sports that I was overseeing. But in the last month, having spent more time with Matt, being in that building, I love what's happening in that building. I really do. You walk in, there's a confidence. Those guys, you can tell that they have a quiet confidence about them, that they feel good about their team. Matt's confident. He loves the two new coordinators. He's letting them, have some reign there and do some good work. But, then what you see in recruiting, the philosophy there I think is great. Getting guys on the campus, evaluating and jumping in there and making offers. And I love the aggressive mentality. So, for me, I'm looking for some great things this fall. I think we're going to look a lot different on the field. Nobody knows how many you're going to win, how many you're going to lose. But I think when we line up, we as fans, and I'm not a football guy with my history, but I think we're going to be able to look out on the field and say, what, we're well coached. We're a well coached team. Maybe at some point there might be a guy that's a little faster than us that makes a play, but I think we're going to be in the right spots, and I'm excited to go to Memphis and get the season started.
You did the first year of basketball under Kermit, and I mean, I know you had a hand in going in, and he gets the job and everything, but you probably had to look up at some point and go, hey, even I didn't necessarily expect this quickly, as quick as it moved.
Yeah, I think we all are feeling we're a little ahead of schedule, and I think obviously, the cupboard was not bare. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think with some of the talent that was coming back that AK had on the team, sometimes just a change of scenery, ignites those guys, gives them new energy. And I think we saw that, and we had some younger guys step up, and some older guys step up, some guys that maybe we didn't think were going to play a whole lot. But it was a great year, and I think that a lot of that has to do with just Kermit's philosophy. He's a guy that's an attention to detail guy. He's going to hold you accountable every single play, and I love that about him. But I think what's probably been the best thing, and we knew this going in, but it's been even more than we thought, is just how approachable Kermit is, how much he's loved in the community. I think he's already built so much equity around Oxford and Ole Miss. And I'm telling you, this roster that he has coming up in the fall is going to be a lot of fun to watch. So should be a lot of fun, and I see that program just taking off and being wildly successful over the next few years.
Starting to break into a little more national recruiting from a basketball level with guys that you're mentioning, whether it be this class or the next class, with some potentials and some commits. Did you believe that was possible here? I mean, because it seemed like, it was always sort of the guy that, didn't have those high major offers, but you were developing and trying to build up or whatever. Never really had that success with that top 50, top 75 kid. And it looks like now at least getting in the door and having some possibilities there.
Yeah, and I think some of that is just being willing to go and recruit those kids. I think you got to jump in there. You got to realize that you're going to get some no's. You're going to go down some dead end roads. But I love the fact that Kermit and his staff with Ronnie and Wynn and Levi, they're not afraid to go tackle any recruit against anybody, and that's a good thing. I think probably at least in the foreseeable future, we're still going to have to build it with guys that we've evaluated well, and we're going to coach them up. You look at a guy like KJ Buffin who signed Middle Tennessee and ends up coming here, and I think he'd be an all-league player by the time he graduates. But I do like the fact that we're able to get in on some of these big kids and these 4- and 5-star guys that it's about relationships. We get them to Oxford. They see the pavilion. They see the TUI Center. They see what Kermit brings to them. He's going to coach them hard. He's going to make them better, put them in a great opportunity to play after college. So I'm excited about it, and I think that winning kind of breeds that. I think Lunardi put something out today, had us as an 8 seed and projected in the tournament next year, obviously way early. Yeah. But that didn't happen before. That kind of stuff didn't happen before, and I think by getting ahead of schedule a little bit, going to the tournament this past year, you create that buzz. The SEC is as good as it's ever been, and I think obviously that helps us right now. So it's exciting to kind of see where that program is going to go, and don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I have a feeling they're gonna be rolling for a while.
I was talking to David Kellum the other day. He said, with your new gig, you probably can't do a lot of color commentating on the radio. You got to give that up now, you think?
Yeah, I'm officially retired.
Okay.
Officially retired from that. I took one of my hats off. But, for me, that was so fun. I got to do it for 10 years and really enjoyed it. AK was so good to me throughout that time, and it was so much fun. It allowed me to kind of stay close to the game that I love so much. But now I get to go, sit in the stands and kind of watch it as a fan and evaluate a little more. But it's been good. But I know David can handle it over there by himself.
What's your next 30, 50 days like? What's coming up? What's kind of on the plate? What's going on? Probably before we talk to you again.
The summertime is used to be a time where you got a little downtime. You really don't anymore. We'll get out of town a little bit in July with the family and do some vacation. But, there's a lot going on. A lot of your student athletes are here in the summer. You're evaluating right now. We're doing, contracts with a lot of our spring sports and getting those wrapped up for next year and all those things. But it's, a lot of planning. I think as we get into the fall, we got a lot of initiatives. We want to do some things we're working on. Potential naming for the pavilion. We're working on a lot of different things there from a fundraising standpoint. We want to close out the Forward Together campaign, so probably a lot of time with donors here over the next 2 or 3 months. But two, just getting acclimated, quite candidly, just getting acclimated to the new role. And the beauty of me jumping into this spot is I don't have to go and build relationships. I know everybody. But at the same time, I'm getting a more intimate knowledge of what they do day to day. And so spending some time with each unit, with each coach, that'll be very important over the summer, because once August gets here, we know that it's on and football is right in the mix. So we'll just spend this summer kind of getting acclimated, getting ready and prime for the fall. But we'll be ready for Memphis when it hits August 31st.
Good luck. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks to Keith for giving me that time on Thursday. The podcast is also brought to you by Tyson Drugs there in Holly Springs at G&M Pharmacy on South Lamar in Oxford. You deliver local to your home or workplace in the Oxford area. That's 662-236-2222 to find out more, including been telling you about for the last couple of weeks after a little hiatus about the sildenafil they offer. It is brand alternatives to the more expensive products. This one's cheaper. It works quicker and also allows you some discretion if you would like it. You can just go to TysonDrugs.com or G&Mpharmacy.com. Click product request to request a prescription online. I've been telling you can break it in half, quarters, ready as little as 15 minutes, again, if so desired. So that's 662-236-2222.
Podcast also brought to you by Oxford University Bank. OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB gives you the comfort of home, all the benefits the big mega banks provide, all the technology and products you can want, all with the personal touch. When you call OUB, you speak directly with the live person, all without having to press 10 buttons without a 5-minute wait. OUB offers its customers the absolute best cash checking account. It's called Kasasa, and with Kasasa, OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000. And with Kasasa, ATM fees nationwide are refunded. OUB also offers online bill pay and mobile check deposit using its online app. To learn more, go to liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured. Podcast also brought to you by Scoopers Pet Waste Removal, LLC. They are the sponsors of our crap take of the day, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. Everyone loves their pets, but no one loves stepping in their pet's stuff. You hate tracking that stuff back into your house. That's a nightmare. Scoopers can make that nightmare go away. They'll go into your backyard, apartment complex, or condominium and pick up what no one really wants to pick up. They'll do it for $10 a cleaning. They'll clean up your yard. They'll do it on your schedule, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or a one-time service. No contracts required. You can cancel at any time. And if you have multiple dogs, it's just $2 for each additional dog. So if you own a home, a condo, or an apartment complex in Oxford, and you'd like to deal with a lot less crap, call Scoopers, 662-506-2754, or send them an email, scoopers.oxfordpetwaste@gmail.com to get your cleanings scheduled today. Scoopers Pet Waste Removal, they're number one and your pet's number two business.
So, looking at this, as everybody knows, it is Bobby Bonilla Day. He gets $1.2 million from the Mets. Once again, hasn't played in a really long time, but they're paying him they're like 2035 or something along those lines. However, I actually started reading some stories. It didn't work out that bad for anybody. It actually was sort of a good business deal.
It was a good deal for everybody. The Mets. It was a good deal for the Mets too.
The Mets, by saving the $5 million that they would have owed him that year, and again, this is a little bit of fuzzy math, but it's still completely true, they were able to afford Mike Hampton, who almost won the whole dang thing for them that year, was very, very good. They get a pennant out of it, and then when Hampton left, they parlayed that pick into David Wright. I'd say he worked out for them.
Yeah, and David Wright had a fantastic career before injuries.
Yeah, so they end up paying Wright far less than he would have been basically for market value and some other situations. They get him, and then for Bonilla, and now look, I mean, you'll take $1.2 million for not playing for 35 years, don't get me wrong. But had he just taken the money that he was owed in 2000 the other way and put it and invested it at the same rate that he could potentially be investing this, over the life of the deal, he actually would have made $6 million more through 2035.
Yeah, he just decided that.
Oh, I get it. Don't get me wrong.
He just decided that, hey, once a year, I'm going to get a check for 1.2. So, unless you're really living above your means, that can pretty much make that work. And I think he's done other work too. He's done some other things. And
he was still getting $500,000 from the Orioles every year through 2015 or something like that.
Yeah, no, he was smart. I always liked Bobby Bonilla. I always thought he was a really good player. So good for him. This day rolls around and everybody makes Bobby Bonilla jokes, but I've never understood why people think it's funny. I'm like, dude, you're smart. He's never really going to have to worry that much about money. Isn't that what we're all trying to kind of do?
Yeah, I get investing the original sum, but 1.2 a year for 35 would have been quite appealing.
I got to tell you, speaking of money, you look at the money flying around in the NBA yesterday, and if you're a multi-sport star out there and you're not picking basketball, I got to question what you're thinking.
Well, there are only 13 roster spots on the team.
I know, but man, wow. Look,
it works, and people were critical of it at first when this system first went into place, but it absolutely is the way to go. I saw a stat where 40% of the NBA was free agents this year. 40%?
Yeah, something like that. Yesterday and today is why the NBA, they've I've said this before, I'm just repeating it. It's why it works. They built up for the better part of 2 weeks. Oh boy, wait till June 30th at 6 o'clock. And then they delivered. And at June 30th at 6 o'clock, it was a free-for-all. I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night. I got up this morning and had 5 texts from Carson. My Twitter notifications were off the charts. I mean, I still haven't kind of caught up with everybody going wherever. And this is before Kawhi Leonard signs with anyone. Presumably Memphis will buy out or trade Andre Iguodala, who they got last night. There's a lot more stuff to happen. Jimmy Butler, the deal to Miami's not done. There's there's a lot of drama still left to be had, and they'll take it up until about July the 4th, and then they'll say, okay, football, sure, it's brilliant.
Sports are entertainment, and they found a way to be a soap opera. So, congratulations.
Yeah, Major League Baseball could learn so much from this, but they won't. They won't do it. But they could. But basketball, it's genius. It's genius. I mean, they will dominate the headlines of sports media for the next 4 days. And then we'll have the 4th of July. Everyone will shoot their fireworks and stuff. And then on the other side of that, we'll start turning our attention to football, and basketball will say, okay, well, we'll have Summer League now. And for the diehards that like Summer League, they'll watch Summer League. But for the most part, the NBA fades off until, October and hands it off to the NFL and says, we acknowledge your reign. We bow to you, King. And they disappear.
And we'll see you on Christmas Day.
Yeah, we'll come back for the diehards in October. And on Christmas Day, we'll take over. And then we'll roll. That's how that works. It's genius. They understand their spot. Meanwhile, Major League Baseball has, Craig Kimbrell and Dallas Keuchel didn't play until June. The NFL does this with free agency. The NFL has, it's coming. The NFL builds up the draft, and then the draft is this big deal, and then the NFL builds up the start of the free agent period, and it's always a lot of activity within 2 or 3 days. Some people get it. I'm always, I don't know. Major League Baseball doesn't want to get it. They are the stubborn old man yelling in the yard.
And I get this is not a huge deal. I went to dinner last night when I got back from the wedding in Louisville over the weekend, and TV was on just in the restaurant, and I looked up at it, and it took me 5 minutes to realize it was the MLB All-Star selection. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Or announcement or whatever.
Yeah.
Had no clue.
No clue. And how stupid of Major League Baseball to go, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's announce our All-Star team literally during the same hour that the NBA free agency gets kicked off. Tone deaf.
Or just don't care.
And it might be that.
Just, hey, we're a regional sport at this point. We are what we are.
Yeah, you just better hope that you're getting young people. Because, that's old people are closer to the end than the younger people. You kind of want to get them when they're young. You are competing for that dollar.
Yeah.
What do you think the average 12-year-old boy was talking about yesterday at 6:00? Who made the All-Star team? Or, oh gosh, can you believe KD and Kyrie are going to Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I got to guess.
If you're the Knicks, what do you do?
Well, you can't move your franchise. You can't shut it down. There's no spin.
Yeah.
It was a disaster.
Yeah. The
whole offseason's a total failure. Part of it was because they didn't get the right ping pong ball.
Yeah.
But they built this offseason around getting Kyrie and getting Kevin Durant and maybe even getting Kawhi Leonard. They got none of them. Instead, they get DeMarcus Cousins on a short-term deal, possibly.
I saw one of the more surreal things on Friday, and again, it was a terrible situation. I haven't seen if anyone passed away or anything from the wreck, but so headed to Louisville on Friday, and on 40, probably 30 miles, maybe a little less than that, south of Nashville, and all of a sudden, both sides, on the other side of the interstate, there's no one coming at all. I'm like, this is kind of weird. There's nobody coming this way. And then on the way we're traveling, it is a traffic jam and just a dead stop. Like, I'm not sure I've ever been in my life. I think we moved 1.5 miles in an hour and a half, maybe.
Oh, God.
I-40 was closed for a certain number of miles in both directions because a trucker carrying hazardous material flipped down the interstate. The material was, I don't know if it was flammable, but it was leaking or whatever. So they closed 40 for a certain number of miles and had to evacuate all residences within a half mile of the spill on Friday in Nashville. And I actually didn't even know what was going on until I asked Twitter. And then I pulled up the map on my phone because that wasn't what I was using. And it showed, and I've never seen this, I-40 was like a purple color on the map, and it meant closed completely. So we're all trying to get off this one little county road exit off of 40. And credit to Google Maps here, because I switched apps, I went to Google Maps. It led us on this really weird roundabout thing that was not where the rest of the traffic was flowing, and found the exact spot where 40 reopened. So it was like a movie. It reminded me of, I don't know if you ever watched Vanilla Sky, but he's going through Times Square in a dream, and there's nobody else on the street. And it reminded me of this. We did 15 miles probably on I-40 on Friday with no one else on the interstate.
Wow.
No one. Sorry, there was one more car. One more car took the same exit we did. It did 15 miles with, in either direction, no one. It was like a closed circuit commercial.
I bet that was a bizarre feeling.
It was really strange. And then once we got up further, we saw where everybody else had been detoured off. Because so much of that is just follow the leader. One guy starts going in a direction, and everybody else just kind of follows him. And it was weird. So a trip that was supposed to take 6 hours took almost 8.
Yeah, that sort of happened to me coming back from Columbia when Ole Miss lost in the NCAA tournament. There was something happened between Atlanta and, well, it was right outside of Atlanta because I ended up detouring all around Atlanta, and I thought, I'm never going to get back to 20. And I eventually did, obviously, but I just, after a while, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to drive and just see where it takes me. Just not going to worry about it. And, I was off on, and it was night, and I was like, this is not going to end well. And I had to get home because Laura was gone. And so anyway.
And you also did not have a 3-year-old in the car.
No, I didn't have a 3-year-old in the car, and that did make it nice.
It was okay. It was fine.
It's where you turn around and look at a 3-year-old and you go, "Hey, look, it is what it is." I mean, you get to decide how miserable you want.
If you would like to scream, I can't stop you, but
I can't make it better, hon.
Yeah,
so,
and then even better, get just north of Nashville, stop for gas, and when restart the vehicle, air conditioner goes out in the car.
Oh, that's not good.
No, that wasn't good at all. So 2 hours of that, and then fortunately a Meineke in Louisville handled that on Saturday morning. But yeah, and it was the compressor. It was the expensive one, so that was good. I was really excited about that.
Got pretty warm in there, huh?
It did. It did not get as warm as I was anticipating when I first discovered the issue. Maybe in my head I was just expecting Hades, but it was not good, but it was not miserable.
Yeah,
it was okay. I mean, look, people went decades in vehicles without really cold air conditioner, and it'll be all right. But
yeah, but those people walked both ways to school in the snow, uphill both ways. I mean,
there's no more of a defeatist feeling than turning the kind of warm air on and then deciding, is that colder or hotter than it being off? Like, it's air. Is it a net neutral or a net positive?
Yeah.
And then finally realized it was probably a net negative. So
you just roll the windows down and
you go at it. Yeah, and then Carly-Ann's going, please roll the windows up. And I'm like, look, you do not want me to roll the windows up. I get that you're 3 and you don't get it, but no, that's not the answer. Because it was blowing her hair in her face and all that stuff. So, yeah, anyway, it was good.
You might have had, if you were with us at Blue Delta's 5-year anniversary on the square in April, you enjoyed it, you had a great time, but maybe you missed it and you're worried you aren't going to be able to get fitted for your pair of Blue Deltas until that weekend in September when football season rolls back around and into Oxford. But don't fret. These guys travel the country doing trunk shows, fitting sports teams, doing golf tournaments, etc. I know they were in Taylor last week. They were also in San Francisco over the weekend. They've been in New York, Chicago, Orlando, Dallas, Jackson, Birmingham, Atlanta, San Angelo, Texas. They've been to a lot of places, and they can come see you as well. So look them up on Instagram and Twitter at Blue Delta Jeans. and then send them an email, info@bluedeltajeans.com, if you're interested in hosting a private trunk show in your city. And a Blue Delta stylist will reach out to you with details. Again, it's info, I-N-F-O, @bluedeltajeans.com. 7 South Tailgating has recently been coined the best tailgating service in Oxford, receiving unanimous votes across multiple polls. And there's a reason for this. Although there are dozens of service providers to choose from, 7 South is different. Kyle Thornton and his team work directly with each individual customer to customize their service to each group's specific needs and requests. With over a decade of experience in the Grove, the 7 South team is there when you need them. As one customer recently said, I've bounced around to several service providers over the years and finally came across 7 South. If you use 7 South once, you'll never tailgate without them again. It's 7southtailgating.com, or the phone number is 662-321-1682. And don't forget, if you live in or around Oxford and you want to sign your son or daughter up for OPC fall soccer, you still have some time, but you're running out of time. You've got about a week left. You want to do it. It's very affordable. It's a great program. The games are played out at F&C Park. The season starts in August. It goes through about the middle of October. It's oxfordparkcommission.com. My kids played in it. It's a great program. So if you live in or near Oxford, you don't want to miss that opportunity. You can sign up online, oxfordparkcommission.com.
Yeah, thanks to anyone that we saw out at Taylor on Thursday night at the Wonderbird Gin facility. Mitch McCamey, those guys did a great job with food, and I saw they were selling some jeans as well there with Blue Delta. So good time out there. Hope several of you took advantage. Do what?
That gin was really good.
Gin was really good, and I'm not a gin guy, and it was good.
I normally don't particularly like gin that much.
Yeah, but you were inquiring about a bottle and whatnot, so
yeah, no, it was really good.
Right there, just on the right of Old Taylor Road, right there, almost to Taylor, not quite into town yet. But anyway, yeah, check it out. Cool facility there with all those guys. Good to see everybody. So we will definitely have a show tomorrow. We don't really know what we're doing the rest of the week, frankly, so we'll update you as we go. Have not made that decision. The 4th of July is on Thursday, so we definitely won't have a show that day. All you can sit around and watch the hot dog eating competition and enjoy your patriotism. But anyway, let's see. Real quick, last question, because I have this question. We talked a little NBA. Are the Nets real? Is this contender-ish or what? What's up?
Well, I mean, look, Kevin Durant just tore his Achilles.
Okay, fair enough.
He's not going to play this year. Kyrie is a guy that has many of his previous stops. He has destroyed locker room chemistry. He's going to have a year where he carries a team that's not a contender, and he's got to start building culture. He's got to fit into the culture. He's got to accept the culture. He did not do that in Boston. He really didn't even do it in Cleveland when he destroyed a championship team. So he's got to change his stripes a little bit. Can he? I don't know. And then we don't know about Kevin Durant. It will be one of the kind of fascinating things to see. Does Kevin Durant come back what will be realistically 16, 17 months post-injury? Does Kevin Durant come back as Kevin Durant? Because if he does, then yeah, they're a contender. Sure. I mean, Kevin Durant's been a contender everywhere he's ever been. He's one of the best players in the world when he's healthy. But is he the same guy? It's interesting to me that what Kevin Durant's going back to is a system that will be very similar to the system that he ran in Oklahoma City with Russell Westbrook, and completely opposite of the system that he ran with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and all of those guys in Golden State. I guess the end has come for Golden State. Kevin Durant's gone. Draymond Green being shopped is the rumor. Andre Iguodala, he kind of took some shots at the Warriors medical staff last week, and he got banished to Memphis. Actually, it wasn't that. They had to get rid of his money. The way the sign and trade works with D'Angelo Russell, that hard caps them, and so they have to get under the apron to be able to do it. So they had to move Iguodala. But that dynasty is over as it was built the last 3 years, and the West is now wide open, and everyone still waits to see what happens with Kawhi Leonard, and does he go to the Lakers with LeBron, and Anthony Davis and all that stuff. I tell you the team that's now really interesting to watch, and I'm not going to bandwagon them, but I will watch them a lot next year. They will be like a league pass stopper for me. Is the New Orleans Pelicans. They're really going to be fun. They went out and got J.J. Redick. They got the guy from Spain who led the EuroLeague playoffs in scoring. I can't think of his name right now. It's like Melly. They have Zion, obviously. They're Derek Favors.
Still got Drew Holiday.
Yeah. Are they a contender? Well, no. They're not going to win the championship, but they're probably a playoff team. And I wrote about this in 10 Thoughts. Antonio Daniels did the pregame and postgame stuff with the Thunder the last few years, and he is absolutely fantastic as a broadcaster. He'll give you his opinion. He's not one of these yes men kind of guys. And he now teams up with Joel Myers, who's one of the best voices that no one ever hears about in the NBA. Joel Myers and Antonio Daniels by themselves will make Pelican games entertaining. And then now that the product that's on the court is going to be pretty interesting, for people who like the Pelicans, or if you live in their viewing area, it's going to be really, I mean, if you want to give the NBA a shot, that's the team you ought to kind of try. This could be the beginning of if Zion is what everyone thinks Zion is, this will be the beginning of like a 10-year run where they're a really competitive, contenderish, at least, sort of team. And their broadcast crew will be absolutely fantastic.
Okay, good points there. Thanks to Keith again for hanging out with us today. Appreciate him giving us that time again last Thursday, but we'll make that easy for you from an understanding what was during and then what was after the interview. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.